This is the Lifestyle Builders Podcast, show 91, why we love conferences and our biggest takeaways from them in 2018.
Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Tired of putting in long hours doing what everyone says you should and still not making money? Sounds like you're ready for Lifestyle Builders. We'll help you get back on track, taking action, and seeing results. Head over to joinlifestylebuilders.com today to get started.
Did you have like a southern drawl when you did that intro?
I don't know. That love came out just very accentuated
yes,
there.
Yes, it did. You're very excited for conferences here.
I love them. Love them. Wow. All right. So in honor of Halloween being last week, what were your best costumes when you were a kid, if you can remember?
All right. Well, I'm going to give you my best one and then my most pathetic one. So my best one was, I don't even remember, I think my mom or my mom's friend made this giant dinosaur. You know, those inflatable ones? Well, they made that, but it was out of cloth.
Whoa.
And I was down the hall, yeah, I own this. I was a T-Rex. It was great. But my most pathetic one was, and this is actually kind of sad now that I'm thinking about it. So as a kid, we didn't have a Halloween costume one year, and my mom told me I had to go put one together. And so I come out, and she's like, "What are you?" And I'm like, "I'm a rich kid." And she's like, "What?" And I had headphones, sunglasses, and I don't know, something on. And that was apparently my definition of a rich kid when I was a kid.
You know what's really sad is that there is an influencer costume for sale online right now.
So I was the influencer before.
Apparently you were. You put that together in your mind.
All right, how about you?
I actually suck at remember. I don't even remember what I was half the time for Halloween, but I do know that I was born 4 days before Halloween. My birthday is October 28th. So I actually came home from the hospital on Halloween, and my mom dressed me up as a tiny baby pumpkin. So I know we have pictures somewhere. I'll have to see if my mom has a copy.
Well, I was going to say, and actually, we forgot our most epic costume, which was Homer and Marge Simpson.
I think we talked about that on one of the other episodes because we were obsessed with the Simpsons and we dressed up as Homer and Marge.
But I had a giant Homer mask, we had it all laid out, and then the best was Ariana because we had her hair blue. Yes. It was straight up that was epic.
And my worst costume ever is we live in Western New York, and there were a couple years where it was so cold and it snowed on Halloween. And so we just forewent costumes and just wore snowsuits. So I remember one year I went around with one of my cousins and we were just legit wearing snowsuits and walking up to doors and trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
That was our costume. We were winter.
There you go. We're snowboarders. We're kids on snow days.
Yes. Oh, that's epic. I should have known that. I'm just a kid on a snow day.
All right. So we are talking about conferences, which I know is actually a topic we both love talking about.
It is. And did we talk about this before, or was that the first was that our old podcast? I think it was our old podcast, wasn't it?
Yes.
I can't remember.
It's definitely the old podcast.
We're on episode 91, man. I don't remember.
So the old podcast, for you guys that maybe don't know, we used to have one called Serial Startups, and we actually will put a link to the show notes.
Oh, yeah. It was
at Tom and Ariana at tomandariana.com/91. But we talked all about how to maximize the benefits of conferences. So what to do before, during, and after. But what we're going to talk about today is just some of our biggest takeaways from conferences that we've attended this year.
And we went to a lot this year.
Yes, we did. You guys have seen, I've pulled Ariana into, this world.
First, let's talk about the perks of conferences because, everyone kind of looks at them as oh, it's a business thing, or if you have to go for work, oh, it's going to a conference for work. There are some perks to going to these conferences. The first one is meeting all the cool people.
That's probably my number one, to be honest.
That's why I put it number one.
So it's funny. We go to these conferences and people are always like, oh, which sessions are you going to go to? And I'm like, oh, there's sessions here. I'm going to be completely honest. When I go to a conference, and this may be hypocritical because I also speak at them, But I don't go to sessions. Like I might go to a session if a friend's speaking and I want to support them, or if maybe there's somebody I want to meet, or maybe if like the people in the audience will be the people that I want to talk to, I'll go not for the session, but for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, there's so much value when you go to the right conferences, because where else can you bring, 20, 50, 100, 1,000, 2,000 people that are like-minded together that you can just talk with, network with, build relationships, get clients, get mentors, like so much good stuff that you're never going to be able to do in any other setting like that.
Yeah, it's true. I love going and meeting people. I probably attend more sessions than Tom.
Yes, you do.
But I've started to attend less and less of them because we're just finding people in the hallways or meeting up with people and having coffee or, just kind of wandering and seeing how many people we can meet and say hello to and introduce ourselves.
Yeah, well, and I mean, so when we're at conferences, I look at it as I'm there and I just want to help as many people as I can. And there's been multiple times where we'll just be working with someone and they'll start crying, or, they'll come and give us a huge thank you afterwards being like, I can't believe you guys took the time and really cared. And I mean, that's why we do this stuff anyways, but it's one thing to build those connections online. It's a completely another thing to do that in person.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why we do what we do, and being able to do that in person at conferences is just icing on the cake.
It is. Now, perk number 2 is the travel. We don't get to travel a lot yet, and going to conferences is a really easy way for us to travel to a new place and maybe take some time, maybe we take an extra day and tack it on the front, or we take an extra day and tack it on the back. We get to travel and do some sightseeing or do some cool activities. Maybe we pull in people we've met at the conference and we get to go do something cool. But that's a really big perk of going to these business conferences is you may get to visit, 4 places that you've never been before in the same year.
Yep. I mean, that's, we always talk about integrating life and business, and this is a great way to do it. If you're traveling for business, first off, anything you spend is tax deductible because it's a business expense. And if you're tagging personal onto that, you're not going to be able to write off your personal stuff, but you get to save a lot and you're already there. So now let's say, for example, you go to a conference in San Diego. Rather than having to just do a personal trip to San Diego and pay for everything and try to schedule that outside of everything else, if you're already going there for a conference and you're tagging stuff onto the front or the end, or you're just enjoying time while you're there,
mm-hmm.
That's pretty sweet. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I wish I could travel more. Well, this is a great way to be able to travel and get the business benefits while enjoying the life benefits as well.
Yeah. And another part of this is for us, we get to travel and be kid-free for a couple days. High five.
Well, bam.
Now, some of you may be thinking well, I want to take my kids with me. That's an option too. Mm-hmm. We've been to a lot of conferences where people will bring their spouse and their kids. We were just in Orlando for FinCon, and there were a ton of people who took advantage of being in Orlando to bring their spouse and kids, tack a couple extra days on to the conference trip, and they got to go to Disney World.
Well, I was going to say, and that's the thing, in the future, as our kids get older,
we plan on totally
we'll do more
that.
Of that, as well as we'll probably bring the kids to the conference,
mm-hmm.
To start learning and to just kind of experience,
and we've seen
things.
People do that as well. We were at Funnel Hacking Live, and people had their kids there. There were actually a couple kids speakers. So it was an opportunity for them to bring their kids to do some learning, to meet people, to be out in the world, and to see some other kids up on stage doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, especially for people that maybe work at home or maybe don't have a big team around them, or maybe just feel they don't belong because they're going against the grain of being entrepreneurs, being lifestyle builders, and they're not on that traditional path. It's finding other people like you in a place to belong. Because I'll tell you, and we wrote about this in the book, when you make that shift from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of weight and kind of stuff that goes along with that.
Or having a foot in both sides.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is just people not understanding you and not feeling like you've got people to go to that get you. And I'll tell you, going to all these entrepreneurship conferences, that is a place where people get you.
Yes, it
right?
is.
Like you can geek out on whatever business stuff you like. If you want to talk about funnels or Facebook ads or, team building, whatever it is, there are people that will geek out with you till all hours of the night, myself included.
Oh my God, we stay up so late at conferences. It's so bad. But okay, so let's walk through the different conferences that we went to this year, because we did some together and we did some on our own, and share our biggest takeaway from that particular conference with everyone.
Okay, so I kicked off the year. I think my first one was Social Media Marketing World. It was actually in San Diego. Couple good takeaways. I got to meet some people that I had been wanting to meet. So, for example, Amy Porterfield, we had a lot of mutual connections, and she was actually one of the early podcasts that I listened to a couple years ago, like right after she launched. And I think actually I bought her course for you because I wanted you to do something. And I'm like, oh, Amy's really nice. Like, go follow her course. But so I got to meet her, which was great. And then I think the biggest takeaway coming out of it was that was actually where we got our book deal. And so a lot of people might not know this. We were, when I say we, I was writing the book with the intention of just self-publishing it. And so I went to one of the few sessions where Amy was on a panel and Dan Miller was also on the panel. We actually had Dan and his wife Joanne on our Couples in Entrepreneurship series. And afterwards, I saw Dan walking back to the hotel, started chatting with him, just asking like, hey, you're a coach, I'm a coach, you've written 6 books, I want to write 20 books. How'd you get into this? And he told me a little bit. He asked about our book, and then he said, hey, this sounds great. We actually have a publishing company that we're launching. I'd love to, bring you guys in for that. And so a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky you got a book deal. It's like, no. Going to a conference and then sparking up a conversation then led to that. It wasn't the intention, but being in the right place allowed that to happen.
Right place, right time, right person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's, and that's huge. Like so many people I know have met people at conferences or at live events that then have become essential pieces of their business growth.
Well, and here's the thing. It's so easy to get connected with people online, which also means it's so hard to get connected with people online.
It's hard to make real connections.
So if you go to a conference, you can see somebody in the hallway and just spark up a conversation in a way that you probably wouldn't be able to through private messages or emails, but you can see them there and you can, build that relationship.
It also gives you the opportunity to build on relationships you've already made. So if you know a ton of people online, all of a sudden you go to a conference and you put up on your profile like, oh, hey, I'm going to such and such conference. Who else is going to be there? You get a list of people who are going to be there. You then get to take your internet relationship and make it a real life relationship, which is huge. Like a lot of people those last for a lifetime sometimes. You can have that now become a new friendship. Somebody that you can go to and talk to, and you've gotten to hug them in real life. Like that means something.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Then, next was Funnel Hacking Live,
and this was actually the second year we went. And
this year?
I took you.
It was Orlando,
I took you both years.
You took me both years. Yep. We went both years to Funnel Hacking Live, which was pretty cool.
And by the way, night and day difference between Ariana a year ago at conferences when I was dragging her along, and this year where she's like, okay, I see the value. I get it. Like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah. So, oh gosh, Funnel Hacking Live. I got to say, I think my biggest takeaway was from one of the sessions that we actually sat in on. You sat in on this one too, which was pretty cool. Rachel Peterson's talk about kind of creating the empire versus just the skyscraper. Kind of having that in mind, like what's the bigger vision? What's the bigger impact than just, I want to make $1 million. I want to build this one thing that does really well. How do you kind of spread that out and make a bigger impact both for yourself and your family, for your team, and then for everyone else that trickles out to?
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Rachel, which, another cool thing too is that, if you go to a lot of conferences, you'll hear some people say this story like, hey, last year or a couple of years ago, I was just an attendee. This was the first conference I went to, and I set a goal or I set an intention to like be on stage or to like make big things happen. And Rachel was somebody like that. Yeah. So I remember last year, because we've been connected with Rachel like for a long time, like right even before she started kind of her current type of business. And I remember last year when she like invested in Inner Circle with Russell, like wasn't at a point where she probably should invest, but she's like, I want to speak on stage here next year. And I mean, she worked harder than probably
Everyone
most
we know.
people. Yeah.
Pretty much everyone we know.
And then a year later, being able to see her on stage in front of 3,000 people sharing those lessons, which obviously aligned very well with us.
And she rocked it at 8 months pregnant. So
Yeah, she did.
that was pretty awesome to see.
But yeah, it's great being able to see your peers and people that you meet at these conferences or you meet online be able to rise up and excel, and we've seen that with multiple people, and it's just so cool to be able to be there and support and cheer on other people's successes.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we went to Podcast Movement, which was actually super close to us this year in Philly. So that was really cool because we got to road trip it down. We could have flown, but we decided it would be way more fun to road trip, which let us have the potential to actually go and visit one of our clients.
Yeah.
Who lives close to Philly. So we got to go and visit Valley Forge with her.
Forge. And if you guys know me, I'm a history nerd.
Huge history nerd.
So that was awesome.
Yep. We got to trek around the park. We actually stayed with her and her husband. We got to stay up till like 2 a.m, of course, talking business and life and all the things. Got to go and visit her office the next day, take our time, get into Philly. And Podcast Movement was fun. It was different. It was
definitely a different conference.
I think my biggest takeaway was that it was so different because it was not just entrepreneurs there. It was podcasters. And podcasters covers a much larger group of people because it was people of all different topics of their podcast.
Across the
board.
Like
we met a really cool guy who does like a horror podcast. Just met some other people doing different things. We got to see a ton of people in person that we had made connections with online. Got to see Dan. I got to see Dan.
Yeah, you got to meet Dan.
And I got to meet his wife, Joanne, who was there. We got to see Kate and John speak again, which was really cool. And then they were on the podcast not long after that. For the couple series.
Well, and my biggest takeaway from that conference, like you said, it was very different because normally we go to conferences where the common point is entrepreneurship. With this, the common point was podcasting, which then meant a whole variety. But my biggest takeaway was we're in it and we listen. Well, I listen to podcasts.
I do not.
So we see it everywhere and we think it's so big. But when you go to a conference like that, there was one of the speakers that was like talking to average people on the street and showing some stats.
They're doing like studies.
It is so small as to like podcasting is like still so early on. And when he was talking about like the average like download numbers of shows and everything else, it really is like so early on that it's going to explode. And there's so much more potential for it than I think most of us even realize.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was interesting to see some of the different ways people were tackling issues on their podcast. Like there's a lot of podcasts that talk about like social injustices and cultural things. There's a lot of podcasts that are just fun and for entertainment. There's a lot of podcasts that are for knowledge, whether that's business knowledge or just knowledge in general. I actually had downloaded a couple kids podcasts after we came back from that because our daughter loves podcasts. Of course, she's her father's child. So just
she was actually listening to her podcast this morning.
She was.
She found it on YouTube.
Weirdo. But it was nice to see kind of like how podcasting has expanded to touch on all these different parts of our lives and how it's only going to grow. And it's going to keep getting bigger and keep expanding out to more and more people finding podcasts and listening to them on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you got to go to your first solo conference.
Yes.
Which was a big step.
Had never been to a conference by myself before. I actually couldn't even remember the last time, if ever, I had gone somewhere by myself. because I'm pretty sure it is not in existence. The only big trip that I went on was in college for soccer. We went to Spain and Portugal, which was awesome. But my mom actually came with me because she was like a trip chaperone, which was amazing.
You're a nerd.
But also, I didn't go by myself.
The last trip she went on, her mom came with her, if that tells you how long it's been.
No, I've never been on a solo trip.
That's what I'm saying. The last trip you went on, you brought your mom.
Yes.
So we had to get Ariana on a solo trip, and I think it was a great one.
You were on all the other ones with me.
I know.
Of course. All right. So Amy's event, for me, it was different because all the other events that we'd been to had either been like really small, intimate events with like a maximum of 40 to 80 people, or huge, like Funnel Hacking Live and Podcast Movement, where it was like 2,000 people. Amy's event was about 400. So it kind of sat right in the middle where it was like, it was still really cool. There was a lot of cool people to meet, but it was like that different type of intimacy level than the really small ones. They had done table assignments. So everyone took surveys and they put people at tables based on their survey, which that was really cool. I'd never experienced that before. And the takeaway that I got from there was more and more you're hearing this talk about like being authentic, being yourself, infusing yourself into your business. And at Amy's event, obviously Amy was there. She was getting up on stage and talking, and she's somebody who I personally admire, and a lot of people out there do, because she is like the most down-to-earth person. She's one of the nicest people that you will ever meet. And that just comes across in everything she does. She cares. She puts thought into it. She shares a lot of vulnerability,
absolutely,
like her own life, the things that she's dealing with. And she like 10x that on stage. Like she was so open, so transparent, so vulnerable at her live event. It was awesome to see. She had Marie Forleo there. And Marie, if you've ever listened to her, is 100% authentic at all times. She's got her Jersey girl. She swears a lot, and she could care less if you like that. So that was good to see her there. But then she also had Jasmine Starr speak, who's big on Instagram. She's a photographer, and she had her copywriter, Tarzan K, there. So it was really cool to see these, how many women was that? 4? 5? 5 women, and how authentic they each were to themselves and how different that was. And it didn't matter. And like they each leaned into that. So that was my biggest takeaway. It was like, I just need to keep being myself, and we just need to keep being ourselves, because it's so much more relatable when you meet people, when you're interacting with them online, when you guys are hearing us on the podcast. Like, the more authentic and the more yourself you are, the more people can relate to you, and the more people want to be around you.
Well, and like, not for nothing, that's one of the reasons that we don't just do this as a podcast. We do it as video, so you guys can actually see us while we're doing this.
Well, we make hilarious, goofy faces, or I poke Tom.
Well, and the other thing too is that we made a very intentional decision not to edit this podcast. And I think that was really like, it's apparent when we do our shows, but when we brought the couples on, like, you guys got the realness. It wasn't like we edited out like the awkwardness or any of that. So you guys get to see like the real stuff. And when we bring guests on, I don't always agree with the guest. I don't just kind of let them come on and do their spiel. Like, we'll ask the tough questions. And I think that's the biggest point, is there's so much out there, especially with this like entrepreneurship space around like sitting on a beach, drinking mimosas, how easy it is, making all the money. And that is there. That's a piece of it. But the big thing we've been trying to do is just being super open with what this really takes, the ups and the downs, the successes and the failures. And, I think the other thing too with that was, when you get to different events in different circles, you're more well-rounded. Like, I've seen some people that just kind of stick in one circle, and they
forget that the rest of the world exists.
Exactly. Like, they kind of get so bought into like one way of thinking or one way of doing it. Whereas the beauty of like you now is we're getting you into different circles, and you get to see how different people do it. And then we can decide how we want to do it.
Well, and I think that's hugely apparent in this year, the conferences that we went to, all in different circles, like so many different people. I mean, some of the same people, which is kind of nice. You get to meet up with people, but a lot of the people were different. So that brings us to our next event, which was FinCon. And Tom had been to FinCon last year. And I just remember when he came home, he raved about it. Oh my gosh, it was a great event. I can't wait to go next year. I want to bring you next year because I think you're going to love it. And of course I did. The people at FinCon are just of a different breed.
Well, the community is just so supportive. And so FinCon is like really for anyone in like the finance space, personal finance, business finance. Well, the conference has like 2,000 people, and like PT who runs it, we actually had him and his wife on the couple series as well, and they talked a little bit about kind of how it came to be. It is one of the tightest knit communities for having that many people in it. Like it is phenomenal to see.
A lot of collaborations. I think that was probably one of the biggest takeaways was like that community focuses a lot on collaboration over competition because they're all in the same space. Everyone's talking about money.
Well, and that's actually one of our core values.
It is, which is why FinCon fits for us.
That's what I'm saying. So we're like, we want to collaborate. We don't want to compete. And so being able to go to a conference where that is so apparent, it's like, yes, this is great to see. I think the other thing too, like that we've seen is that with that conference, there's a lot of people that have kind of the first half of what we preach, which is financial freedom, right? The challenge or the opportunity that we have to help people at that conference is taking that next step. So a lot of people will live frugally to achieve that financial freedom, but we don't want you to live frugal your entire life. We want temporary frugality to get financial freedom, and then we want you to build your dream life and have that impact you want. And in order to do that, like the way we do it, it's through building a business. And there was a lot of people that were struggling with kind of the business building piece, which then also I think showed us that there's a big opportunity for us to continue what we're doing because there's a lot of people out there that need it.
Yeah, well, and going to FinCon actually gave us inspiration for another podcast topic to talk about, which is the FIRE movement. So that this year at FinCon, that was very, very apparent. And FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. So a lot of the people in the financial space, they are teaching people how to budget, how to pay off debt, how to live frugally so that you can do those things, so that your family has that financial freedom and you don't have to rely on, a high-paying job forever to be able to live the lifestyle you have. So that FIRE movement is a really, really cool idea when you look at it, what's the word I'm looking at? Cohesively with entrepreneurship.
Sure.
I don't know if that was a word I was trying to.
I don't think so.
Something.
But so and actually that aligns really well. Just give it up. So when you look at the first two sections of our book, the first section is Plan with Purpose, all about kind of getting clear on what you want out of life. The whole second section is all about finances. And Ariana's like, man, we're going to have a whole section in our book about like personal finances. But it's because when you understand your budget, how to get out of debt, how to get yourself set up well financially, that then leads to a whole bunch of other freedom. The challenge is most people kind of stop at that point, and where the rest of the book continues on is how to build a business to continue to support that. And that's why we're so excited to get this book out there, because we haven't seen anything that's kind of putting those all together. So for anyone that's interested in the book, we actually have a wait list, and we're going to be giving you guys some sneak peeks and all of that. You guys can jump on prizes and get that at tomandariana.com/book.
Ooh, made that one easy to remember. All right. So last event of the year was actually our own. We held a weekend workshop session or a weekend mastermind session with a couple of our Lifestyle Builders members. Yeah. And this was like the first year we had talked about doing an event for a while. And this was the first year where we were like, ooh, we're actually going to do the event. And we had people that wanted to come. So it was everything I expected, but also not necessarily.
Well, and so my background has always been in person. So I was always doing consulting physically at these different companies. I was helping them to facilitate like their quarterly offsites, and I was doing like week-long trainings. So that's like the environment I thrive in. And one of the things I've missed as we've done a lot more like online and virtually is that in-person connection, because as we've talked about, you can go so much deeper and build those relationships. So it was awesome to be able to host that, the first time for us, which will be, I'm sure the first of many that we end up hosting, kind of going forward. But we were able to do both the life and the business stuff. So what was actually cool was we got an Airbnb and we made it this like all-inclusive like retreat.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just do the business stuff and then you're kind of off on your own. Like the entire weekend was getting to know each other, getting to, do strategy around like what you want in life and business, and then work through like some of the like fears or challenges to maybe actually achieve that. And then tack on a little bit of fun, as well.
Of course. You had to tack on the fun. And speaking of which, that was one of my favorite moments, I think, of the year. Each conference has probably had one or two, but doing our live event, we took our members on like a little excursion on Sunday, the last day of the event, and we went to Niagara Falls and did Made of the Mist.
And so if you guys haven't done this or don't know about it, Niagara Falls is just massive.
It's one of the 7 wonders of the world.
And Made of the Mist, you actually get on this little like ferry boat and you go down like right next to the falls and you get soaked because of all the water that's coming off. But maybe we'll put some pictures up on the show notes page at tomandariana.com/91. But it was just a very surreal experience. It was really, really cool thing. A way to close out the weekend.
And it was a way to close out the year because that's our last conference of the year.
This is true.
Or live event. Whatever you like to call them. What were some of your favorite moments from our conferences this year?
I think we hit on a lot of them, but one of the ones that stands out is the way that I've coached and consulted. I've always gotten criticism over the years because it like doesn't fit in with like how most business coaches or consultants are. And it's because I kind of go with the flow. I put clients first, and then I do like everything I can to help them, which usually is counterintuitive to the advice that like most business coaches and consultants give. I read a book a couple of years ago based on a client's recommendation called Getting Naked, which helped me understand why my counterintuitive approach worked. But I hadn't really found too many people that like took the same approach. And before Funnel Hacking Live, I started hearing this name like Alex Sharfin. It came up a couple times, and then him and I connected right before the conference, and then I found out he was speaking there. So we got to connect at the conference, and I actually sat like at one of his roundtables for a couple hours one night, and it was funny because every time he would say something, like you would poke me, and you're like, yeah, that's what you say, or that's what you do. And it was just very nice to find somebody else who has experience, actually understands what it takes to build businesses, and then is out like showing people how to do it. So little kind of like preview, we actually have Alex and Katie coming on the podcast soon for their Couples and Entrepreneurship series, where we're going to talk about like how they built their businesses and the relationships. So meeting Alex was really good, knowing that there's other people like me out there, and that, we're moving entrepreneurship forward together, but not just to build a massive impact, but to also build your great family life while you're doing that.
One of my favorite moments was at FinCon. We had the opportunity to interview Chris Hogan, which was so cool. I mean, he is just like, I could sit next to him and just listen to him talk all day. It wouldn't matter what he was talking about, but his voice is just the best voice. So radio, TV, whatever you want to call it.
Think like Barry Manilow and then drop it like 2 octaves.
Well, you guys will get to hear it because we got to interview him live at FinCon. So one of our episodes, you'll get to hear our interview with Chris Hogan. But I mean, he was just such a great, down-to-earth, like nice guy. We talked about a lot of great stuff on the interview with him. And then we got to watch him because he was the keynote speaker for the end of the conference. So,
well, and what was great too is when we talked to him, we were aligned on so many things. And, you know, when we were chatting and he's like, ask me about work-life balance. And I'm like, yes, we will, because that's one of the biggest things that people come to us with needing help on. And I loved his approach to it. So, you know, we won't give too much away here. But if you guys don't know, Chris Hogan is part of Dave Ramsey's team, and he focuses specifically
personality.
Well, and he focuses specifically on retirement. So, you know, we got to talk to him a little bit about, you know, what does retirement mean for entrepreneurs? And then even just kind of into a little bit of like his path with entrepreneurship and being a father and, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
So, you know,
awesome.
and that kind of goes back to the point where, right, these conferences are about people, the people you meet, the connections you make,
the opportunities you get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I guess kind of my, my summary of this whole thing is that, you know, if you guys aren't going to conferences or any sort of like live events, I would recommend to do that, you know, even if it's just local meetups in your area. If you go to meetup.com and find them, because I'll tell you, when you do travel to events, you're probably going to spend, you know, a couple $1,000s between travel, food, lodging, the ticket to the event. But it doesn't have to be restrictive.
Correct.
You know, so start local, and the more you do, I mean, there's been like, we've spent a lot of money over the years on conferences, but the payback and the connections and everything else from there has just been so phenomenal.
Yes. One of my favorite moments, well, I have two favorite moments, both from when I attended Amy Porterfield's event, was I met somebody at the event who was just one of those, what's the word I'm looking for? She had one of those personalities where like, it was like immediate. Everyone felt that, like a magnetic. She was a very magnetic personality. And she had this thing that she does everywhere she goes. Instead of just taking a normal selfie or a picture with people, she calls them nature scenes. Her name was Melanie Simmons Howe, and she would like say, okay, we're going to take a picture together. But instead of all standing here and smiling at the camera, we're going to pretend we're out in nature and we're seeing something amazing or scary or cool. So you like pose for the picture. And then you get it, and everyone looks ridiculous, but it is so hilarious. It is such a great memory thing to like make all these nature scene photos everywhere she goes. And she just has like albums full of them, of all these people that she's met, these random strangers. We're going to do a nature scene. She made the whole room, all 400 people at Amy Porterfield's event, do a nature scene. And she went and took pictures like around the room. It was hilarious. And then, I got to ask Amy to come on the couple series live because I met her. I got to say, hey, Tom met you at Social Media Marketing World. I'm so excited I got to meet you. And I got to ask her if she and Hobie would come on. And they just were. And it was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, you know, so like, to be honest, we could probably just go on for like days of like all the benefits. But like I said, you know, I would highly recommend looking for opportunities to get connected with more like-minded people. This might be people in your industry. This might be just other business owners and entrepreneurs. But the more you can find the people around you, the people that are going to support you, the people that you're going to be able to build relationships with, I think the more, you know, not only are you supported, but the more you realize that it really is your way to be able to do things. And I know we've both grown so much from being around just all these different influences that we've had and the people we've met. And, you know, it's given us new ideas. This is a big one. It gives you inspiration because you can't help but feel the energy from these events and the people. And we've had a lot of like big breakthroughs just from going to events.
It also gives you a support system to reach out to. Now you've got people all over the country, all over the world, potentially, that you've met in real life. And when you come to a time of need, you can reach out to those people and, you know, you have that deeper connection than just somebody that you met on the internet.
Absolutely.
All right. So actions for today. I would love to hear from you. What's the best conference you have ever attended and why? So if you head over to the show notes page at tomandariana.com/91, leave it in the comments, or if you're watching us on YouTube, wherever you are, let us know what's the best conference that you've attended and why.
And so building off of that, my action for you guys is when you look forward into the upcoming year, what conferences are you planning to attend? Because one of the things, like we're actually planning our, next year's agenda out right now. But one of the cool things is being able to maybe attend some tried and true conferences, ones you've been to before and you really love, as well as finding out what other conferences are available and which other people maybe have you been connected to online that you want to meet in real life. So the more that we can all kind of share what events we're going to, why we like them, and then what we're planning on attending, the more you can then decide, all right, which ones you go to because of either the content or the people you want to meet or the location that the conference is.
Yes. Yes. I love that. That's a good one. All right. So if you are somebody who feels like you need a little bit more support and maybe you don't get to go to a lot of conferences or live events, but you want the support system and you want some people to help give you guidance as you are building your business, as you are sifting through life and trying to figure everything out, come and check out Lifestyle Builders, because that is the community that we're building. Support, accountability, guidance from Tom and I, from all the other members in the group. So you can find out more about that at joinlifestylebuilders.com. Oh, what's your book? Bookshelf.
Can't believe you forgot about the book.
I forgot.
Okay. This is one of my top 5 books. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And this is one of those quote unquote classic books. And I read it for the first time many years ago when I was struggling to just build relationships with like coworkers and colleagues in my corporate space. And the title is kind of like, well, win friends, like that sounds kind of manipulative, like, but what it really taught me was how to talk to people, how to care about people, how to be interested and curious. And I've read this book probably every 2 years since then. And the coolest thing is every time I read it, I pick up something new. And like I used to be so awkward, like going to events. So like if you guys are nervous about like meeting people or going up and starting a conversation, like just a quick aside, first time I ever went to like a real estate investment meeting, which when I was trying to get into real estate, everyone said like, go to this event. It was a local meetup. I walked in and I was so nervous and scared that I didn't talk to anyone. I turned around and I walked out because I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't have the confidence. After reading this book, it helped me to understand how to not have that fear happen and then practical skills to be able to build relationships. It's helped in personal relationships as well as business. So whether or not you go to conferences, which you should, I'd highly recommend picking this book up because it's just going to have a massive impact on your ability to communicate and your life.
Love it. All right, you guys, it's been another amazing episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and lifestyle builders.
And as always, I want you guys to remember that it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Bye. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you know another entrepreneur who may benefit from hearing this show, we would so appreciate you being a good friend and sharing it with them. Are you dreaming of a life of financial freedom and more time to spend with your loved ones? Want to build your business to support that dream? You need Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. Become a lifestyle builder at joinlifestylebuilders.com. Are you a Lifestyle Builders podcast fan? We'd love to hear from you. Head on over to tomandariana.com/iTunes and leave us a review.